Hey, welcome to Behind the Stone. I am Adam Weiler with Sunken Stone. I'm here with Neil Bannister and Joe Kensit from SV Marketing, some of the best Facebook marketers in the game today. How you guys doing?
All good,
All
all
good,
good,
brother.
Chad.
Sweet. Well,
All good.
quick intro. How about, why don't you guys talk about your journey into the internet or D2C marketing space and what brought you to here and how'd you get into it?
Well, so I'll give you the short version of a long one. So many years ago, you probably would now believe it looking at Neil, because Neil's done the best before and after transformation. If you saw the old Neil, Adam, you'd be amazed. But many years ago, we both were in the fitness niche. A long time ago, I essentially kind of built my fitness brand on kind of networking and front of house. Neil built his all kind of behind a computer, so complete and utter different ways in doing it. From there, we kind of met. We decided to do an online nutritional company together, which was the biggest failure, like it's literally ever. It was the biggest failure ever. But from there, we met loads of cool people in the fitness niche. From long story short, we started off working in the fitness world, helping gym owners, etc. And from there, we kind of got some big traction in terms of, we started with the small independent gyms. We then got kind of more well known in that market. We had like one of the world's biggest expos come to us, etc., etc. And we kind of then grew. And then from that, we're like, oh, actually, what we really are good at is managing big spends and kind of consumer-based brands. And now we're more so kind of in the e-commerce world, a lot in Facebook, but across kind of numerous platforms from Facebook, Pinterest, Google, and everything else. So it was just kind of a very kind of natural kind of progression really into kind of where we are now. There's obviously been a ton of ups and downs along the way, but what we kind of really try and kind of our unique piece, I guess, if you will, is we're amazing at interpreting data into human emotion.
Nice.
That's kind of that's kind of the thing that we kind of play on.
Nice. We'll get into that. We'll stick a pin in that. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. We should have probably done it in the stock market or something, but we decided to do it in the world of paid media.
Nice.
And then from there, it's just kind of grown organically, in all honesty.
What are those stats you like to give when you're talking to a college or something?
We probably manage around 2 million spends a month.
Nice. So
paid advertising across platforms. We kind of transitioned about 2 years ago from like volume style, in terms of we had hundreds and hundreds of brands we were working with, and now we're just working with a handful. Well, I say a handful, around 30 to 50 brands.
Love it.
So kind of our USP is we try and say, business owners first, and then, we were talking a little while ago, one of our kind of then long-term plans is we're launching our own e-commerce brand. So we've got the sunglass thing that we were talking about, that's doing it from the start.
Nice.
Dirty, kind of get in there. And then also
feels
like
it's exciting, right?
It's exciting coming up with it's exciting coming up with the ideas, and it's not so exciting making it a reality.
A question, something I like to think on. It's like you hear about these origin stories, and then you hear about like the great big success stories. And my favorite part is like that, call it crossing the chasm, or that jump. Like, what's one of those early stories early in your agency days that stick out that you remember, big client or something that sticks out?
I would say it was our first kind of higher average order value direct to sale client that we worked with. And we were just spitballing ideas, myself and Joe. We in the office, we just put up these big paper whiteboards all across the wall and just started mapping out a customer journey to kind of take someone from not knowing anything about this brand to making a $1,000 sale.
Wow.
Primarily in the developing world as well, so the value is even higher.
Wow.
Completely not automated, because nothing in marketing is automated, right? But being able to move people through all of these different areas based on what actions they did and did not take, and it really was just a concept for us at the time, and we were just experimenting, I think, with things, and we got some amazing results, and then started rolling that out amongst other clients and seeing the same things in many different niches, in many different areas across all different platforms. And it was really just trying to get all the different pieces to speak together. And we developed almost like a scale, right, of I guess the technical or the correct term for it would be customer awareness, right? And
Yeah.
we called it stage 1 to 5, and our whole aim and our whole ethos was about getting that person from not knowing anything about that brand, not limiting them and making them walk through all those steps, but being able to identify exactly where someone was in those stages and move them up a stage, move them down a stage if they weren't ready to commit
And this
yet.
was before, top of funnel, mid funnel. Like this is before all these things even existed as far as
I mean, I have no idea. Before we were aware of them, essentially, and and treating it like a multi-channel, multi-platform ecosystem, right? We envisioned it as like a living, breathing thing where we'd know if we could get predictable metrics into one, we could move the needle in other areas.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I guess that's where it really first started, in front of a whiteboard, mapping things out, planning things out, and just
it's fun.
experimenting and
I think the big thing as well is like where we would always, and we still today, like we explain it to all of our team when we work, don't ever think of a lead as a number, think of it as a human being, and think of these clicks all as human beings. And we would literally just segment the audience and say, right, this audience, let's imagine that we are this person, this avatar, whoever. Why are they clicking? Why are they not clicking? But what's going on in their life right now? Is it because they're bored? Is it because it's not compelling? Is it emotional? And we just looked at it from
every action,
that perspective.
Yeah, every action someone takes tells you a story about them and about why they do or do not want the brand or the product, why they are or are not interested, why they believe you or do not believe the brand story.
And I think that's a great segue into kind of this next phase or next segment. If let's say you are this brand, let's say you are a test brand, like a testosterone booster or a hangover pill or a leaky gut fix repair kind of cleanse. Now let's say you got some traction, you got good product market fit there, like you've done some testing, you've on your back and your effort alone, you've got the company to a couple million because of some influencers, because you got on some podcasts, because you're personable and people like you. Now, what's that whiteboard going to show when you guys get in there? Like, what should they be doing next? What are those next level things that?
I think from like an overview perspective, and we did a talk on this at BBW. It's first of all, it's understanding the spine and understanding how has this brand got to where it is and where are the massive holes. So looking across kind of the conversion aspect of their spine and really understanding where's the fall off and everything else. So I think from there is kind of the most, like the first thing to start. And from that, you can then reverse engineer kind of backwards in terms of, okay, cool. So the biggest fall off, and we've seen it with brands we work with that are crushing it. And, it might be at a checkout page, it might be at a product view page or wherever it may be. And then the first thing is always kind of, the most overused term in marketing, the low hanging fruits in terms of, okay, well,
and what are those typically when you dive in?
Typically it's retargeting. So checkout, product view, sometimes it's conversion rate optimization stuff. Sometimes it's tweaking in terms of the user journey from looking at a product to buying the product. So that's always kind of the first thing.
Yeah, anywhere where there's a large amount of potential, generally it's retargeting not being done correctly, or too many people dropping off at certain stage of the funnel. The funnel's too elongated without any extra relevancy, so there's drop off at each point without actually adding any emphasis and improvement on the conversion rate. Because we find that anytime you increase funnel length, there needs to be that increased length for a reason, and that generally comes down to building relevancy, building trust, building authority. And if that increased length doesn't do that, which it doesn't in most cases, you're essentially just creating drop-off points for no reason. So we're identifying those drop-off points. Like Joe said, it could be that the sales page is really bad. It could be that no one is being picked up on the back end of a lead flow campaign. And really just trying to find where the biggest amount of people are coming that are not being, efficiently maneuvered into the next phase of the ecosystem, and where a lot of people are being turned off. And
obviously you guys are experts here. let's say someone did have unlimited resources, did have the stuff, did have the team in house, like what does that actually look like? What would they do? And I'll, give a ton of value. And I'm sure, what are those like tactical things when you're saying about, so shorten up the retargeting, I get that, but what are some other tactical things that a brand can do to get those low-hanging fruit?
So you've got multiple, and we'll start with I guess we'll start with the stage 5, or we'd call the stage 5, and move backwards, right? So stage 5 is anyone who is high purchase intent, who hasn't moved forward. That's going to be your view content, your initiate checkout, your sales page retargeting. There's basically overcoming objections to move people through. Before then, or even after then, if you're retargeting that on like a 14-day window or something similar to that, and people are still not converting after those 14 days, why? What is the reason that they have shown that interest and still not move forward when you're trying to overcome those objections?
You're not overcoming certain objections, or you haven't built trust in there.
Or there's trust, authority, value that we need to build. And we always see it on like a seesaw, right? If the higher the order value, or the higher the commitment, the more you need to build in terms of value, trust, authority.
And what's an actual lever for that? Is that ad copy when you're retargeting, that you're just kind of tweaking the headlines, or are there landers dedicated for each of that?
The best ad copy we've ever found for retargeting is actually not trying to make the sale on the platform, right? It's giving alternative human routes to help overcome those objections. So we might directly speak out to 3 or 4 of the main objections that we think the consumer is reaching at that point, but then we'll try and maneuver them into email. Not even by kind of getting them to click, but asking them to send an email to a person in the support team, an actual name, an actual person. We've tested this.
Humanize it.
Humanize it and get them to tell you their objections, because the biggest, the best salespeople at the end of the day don't have to overcome objections, right? Because they're being brought to you and they're being overcome before they even get there. So trying to move them off, or giving them the route, right, and giving them the option that if they want to, they can reach you out via email, they can get you on WhatsApp or another method. Ad copy is the biggest thing we find in the retargeting, or the creative. Again, check out retargeting or retargeting at that end. You don't want polished creatives, right? That you don't want them to be polished. You want them to be trustworthy. You want them to be coming from a person. People buy from people or brands that they really trust, love, and believe in, and feel like they can relate to. We often find, especially on social media platforms, the more polished the video, especially the further down the funnel you go, the less performance.
We actually tested that as well with a brand where they spent like 20 grand on like a TV kind of quality commercial, and we shot one on an iPhone with Neil pretending to be a Texan.
Where's the cowboy hat and everything?
The one with Neil pretending to be this guy in a car, and that kind of more user kind of generated content outperformed it by a mile. So you've got to play for the platform that you're on. Like people who come via Google, people who come via Facebook, people who come via these different platforms, they're all kind of interacting in a different way, or someone that comes from TV, for example.
Would that work on YouTube? Like would that polished one have worked on YouTube better than Facebook?
We see polished work on YouTube more, for sure. But not like, it doesn't need to be like studio level quality. It just needs to be better quality. We find that on social platforms, it could be the grainiest, old iPhone kind of shot video.
Wow.
As long as it's authentic, it will work really well. YouTube.
When you say authentic, speak to that. What's the 80-20 of authentic for a CPG brand? Like, what are the 3 things the brand needs to know?
So I would say someone who can directly relate. So an example of this is like a UGC video that we used, which was in the firearms niche. Not selling firearms itself, but firearm accessories.
Yeah.
and the UGC video was talking about putting a clip in his firearm, and obviously, I mean, it's much bigger in the US than it is over here in the UK. But I mean, people don't call it a clip, but you get frowned upon if you call it a clip. But because he was, because it was so authentic that he was making this mistake, and he was just like, hey man, yeah, no, it works here, and I put my clip in it, and it, it pops in, and it still holds it. It was authentic, so it was almost like that mistake that made it that next level of authenticity, which really, and that was, I mean, that went crazy. That creative, and it was 9 seconds long, shot on a really old iPhone. Or really
it depends on the. It obviously depends on lots of circumstances, like platform, brand, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we see people overdo it on creatives all the time.
Seems like, if someone's gotten to this phase, they've got some content, they've got something. Then what's your methodology around? And obviously, we keep, this is a one-time thing which you can fill hours with it. What's your methodology on testing, on switching things out? Is it $100? What's your minimum test?
On Facebook specifically?
Yeah. Across channels.
It's generally 1.5 times the average order value is when we start being able to determine whether a campaign is working or not, which is pretty quick.
So like a $50 product, and at $75 of spend,
for that particular creative.
Wow.
And we generally find that if something doesn't start well, it never performs well in the long run. But we generally, and we test things, absolutely to the nth degree. We build out, big sheets which are constantly testing things, so everything goes into a bank, and we attach traits to each of our individual copy, our individual audiences, creatives, and do trait analysis on basically everything that we possibly can do.
And that's getting like auto updated through the API, or how are you guys?
We use a software called Supermetrics, which pulls everything into Google Sheets. We use a specific naming convention throughout all of our accounts, so it makes it easy to replicate this sheet, and then we use custom formulas, primarily queries, to just pull in.
And if that's a 10, let's say we've got that low-hanging fruit already. The brand's like, okay, I'm gonna try this. Like, I've got some videos, I've got some stuff, we shot some stuff, we got some influencer video that they sent to us. Like, where do they even start? How, like, they're not going to get in Supermetrics, like that's for the pros. Like,
I think the most basic thing actually of where to start is probably the analytics of understanding the data, of looking at analytics in terms of where someone is falling off. So if we're going super basic, it's like, well, let's firstly look at, firstly, are the analytics correct?
So get your GA set up.
Before we ever take a brand on, like we have a whole audit process, and in that we literally walk through and make sure everything's firing as it should. And we've seen horror stories, not from us, but in the world. There was one brand that we knew of, and that I don't know who they were working with, but they were working with a brand that had every time an email address lead came in, it was firing as a purchase.
Oh,
and attributing
So then that was just influencing the pixel. And
just in the wrong place. So I think from like the pure base level, first of all, is making sure your analytics are correct, and then looking at the analytics across the spine of looking where is the first injection that's going to be the biggest from a fall off.
That must have been great, except when they checked their bank account.
This is the thing. They actually came to us after this whole thing happened. This is the thing that is mind-blowing, and kind of a lesson for all entrepreneurs in e-commerce. Don't just ever take the numbers in your Shopify or anything or ad account for granted. Check the Stripe, check the bank account that's going in, because they just took it as gospel of, this ad company saying that they're scaling it and they're getting £2 cost for every £10 sale. So scale, and then
oh wow,
they scaled it aggressively, and it was like a week later that he cross-referenced. He was like, why doesn't this add up in the Stripe account or bank account, whatever it was? And then it was a case of, I think there's a problem.
Oh, that's a tough combo.
For sure.
Well, that's a good segue. So you're talking about tracking, you're talking about trends. obviously there seems to be iOS updates and ad tracking and all that fun stuff going these days. What's going on? What are you guys seeing as kind of as close to it as you can?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that we're seeing is massively fluctuating CPMs, primarily in purchase optimized campaigns. We track all of our CPMs from all of our clients as an average daily, and we saw it higher than in Black Friday 2020. And Black Friday 2020, or that holiday season 2020, was kind of quadruple the amount that it had ever been before. And we saw that especially towards the end of May, early June. It was up and above those levels, and it was just peaking, troughing. It was almost like,
are you actually able to count on, like, do you even believe the data?
to an extent, yes. We track. So basically, in any ecom platform, you can see the time of day that a purchase is made.
Yep.
And if you have your pixel event and your browser event and your server event set up correctly, you can also see the corresponding dates and times in your events manager to that. And we match it up daily throughout all of our clients to give us an attribution health score. Generally, some clients is down at 55%. Most clients is around about 65, 70% at the moment, but it is dropping. So we kind of know how much our tracking is potentially out by.
And that's you, and just to take a step back, that would be like a pro level if you've got browser, server, and pixel, or is that pretty standard across?
No, especially it would have been a few months ago. Now the companies, Shopify, WooCommerce, the third-party pixel companies have been pretty quick to implement server-side tracking. Not all of it perfect. But I wouldn't say it's a pro thing now.
Okay. And what do you think is, how is that going to evolve over the next 6 months? Is this going to be fixed? Are you going to get back up to 100%, or?
I mean, it's interesting to see what happens. And the reality of anyone says that they know, they don't, from that perspective, because it's like Facebook's business model has just changed. So a lot on the attribution side is on, of course, if you can find workarounds, then great. But I don't want to die on my sword. I mean, I would hazard that Facebook are going to find a way around, because it's their whole business model, and they're so big and ugly.
They got some smart people there. They've got a lot of money, and if they want to make money or be around in the future, they're going to have to figure this out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And tracking was never 100%, right? There are third-party softwares we're working with at the moment. Hyros, Oric. There's a few others that we're experimenting with and have been for a little while. That do help. Well, the biggest thing with tracking we found is putting everything into place, right? So making sure you do have Google Analytics set up correctly, making sure you are using UTM tags across all of your campaigns, all of your email campaigns, and everything else. Wow. Making sure you're using offline conversions as well to track. And then what you're essentially doing is putting the pieces together, and then also tracking overall ad spend to revenue percentages, so or overall return on ad spends, because nothing is going to be kind of like it was in the good old Facebook days.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is piece together and pull together these pieces of the puzzle, and none of them are difficult to set up once you've got them set up, and then just making sure that you're tracking, even if it's manually, at the end of the day, what your Shopify revenue was, what your Facebook ad spend was, what your Google ad spend was, what your Pinterest ad spend was, what your YouTube ad spend was, and then putting it into a graph, and then using that also to tell the story. If sales spiked this day, what happened? Did you put more Facebook traffic in? And you'll see those correlations.
It's almost like running correlation reports against it and looking at tacos.
Yeah, and all you're trying to do, people look for that kind of 100% attribution, and it never was there, but it was very good.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be there. If you've got all the pieces of the puzzle in play, you can make the best decisions that you can, for
and we're all, I mean, obviously we're all agency owners here, so we are biased, but I mean, what you're sounding like sounds like when Amazon adds, just continually adds more and more features, they make Amazon more difficult. In the beginning, I used to actually hate it, but now I've embraced it and realized like that's why I have a company and why
Oh yeah,
brands
no, definitely,
need. It's like
definitely.
when you're saying all this stuff, my eyes are glazing over, and I'm like, it's nothing in and of itself would be difficult. It's
Yeah,
just complicated. It's like, okay, do these 37 things now instead of this one button you used to have to
Yeah,
press.
yeah, and
yeah,
I think a lot of the barrier to entry, right, for agencies is so low, which is why you see so many horror stories,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the agency world. And we're big believers that we're partners more than anything, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why, we only work with a select number of businesses, just because it's not our clients stay with us 3, 4, 5 years,
Yeah.
not 2, 3, 4 months,
Yep.
because
Yeah, exactly.
everything tries to be a win-win, right? And it's not about, you know it's not about that. So where the barrier to entry has been so low, it's gonna raise, and it's gonna become
Yeah.
harder and harder. A lot of the agencies that don't really care, and we're just churn and burn agencies, for want of a better word, won't last, because they don't have those relationships. They don't, they
And
don't
your
invest.
software, I mean, your software nut must be, that barrier, just the amount of different software tools that you're continuing to add each month is just continuing to grow.
Yeah, yeah, and they are the softwares are relatively expensive, but the it's more the knowledge, right, and the knowledge of
Mm-hmm.
implementing them correctly, and being able to invest the time in implementing them correctly across all the different clients. So I think that's more than anything. But it will be an opportunity to shine. Is the way we're seeing it. An opportunity to kind of show why our clients stay with us 3, 4,
And
5 years.
and let's say you're a brand, you're not quite at the level to work with you guys. What should they be doing in the meantime to get there? Like what are those like
buy our
three
new,
three
buy our
takeaways?
new, buy our new monthly subscription that's coming out in September.
Oh, oh
That we've been
wow,
talking about for the
nice.
last 2 years.
Nice.
We've been talking about that we've been
Well,
talking about for the last 2 years. It's now actually coming out in September.
right, nice. We'll update the link. Neil's on the fence. Neil's like we're fucking busy already. Let's get this.
No, September,
No,
baby. It's happening. Go on,
the
Neil. Sorry.
the biggest thing I think you should really focus on is, number one, nailing your brand messaging. Honestly, the CPM fluctuations between the everything that's been going on have been much lower with the clients that have got really, really strong brands,
Okay.
that do a lot outside of sales marketing, that
Mm-hmm.
outside of direct response marketing, but invest in their community,
Mm-hmm.
invest in building that community and growing
Mm-hmm.
and culturing that community, doing events for their community. And I know that's a lot, but it can start with just really good content, right? And a lot of
Grassroots,
people,
guerrilla, getting back to the end
yeah, just
consumer.
giving value. It can start with that, and it can go. Yes, it might not give you that immediate kind of direct return, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking to grow a brand rather than just sell things, that's the very first thing that you should be doing. And like I said, the CPM fluctuations for those
And
guys.
is this the future of brand? Like, is it possible, fast forward 3 years, 5 years, is this going to be like, will you need your army of devoted followers first before you can even sell anything?
Potentially, but it depends what platforms get released and everything else and what happens. But potentially, I think at the minute, what's happening more so than what's happening, well, more so with Facebook than anything else at the minute. It's kind of the death of the drop shippers.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's more so. We don't work with anyone like that, so that's me more talking from a speculation. But those people that have to, run ads, have to get a 3-turn return on ad spend, can't survive if they're not getting that can't survive an up and a down, don't have a brand so the CPM isn't strong, don't have many organic sales and organic footfall coming into their e-commerce store.
I mean, and you know, I'll play devil's advocate. Like, what value were they providing in the chain? And I guess that they're if it's a quality product, or they're filling that demand hole. But is that the same as, you know, is that better done by someone else on that value chain?
Yeah, I mean, it undoubtedly would be better in the long run. Obviously, I mean, generally they're not as cheap, right? So, you know,
so there's something lower cost. There's something you can get it fast. Like, you can get lower cost and faster, and maybe even higher quality, beating that. I mean, the problem with if you're creating like a groundswell, like typically those are up market, or you have to charge a premium price for that if you got a premium product.
Yeah, and you know, and then dropshippers, etc., fill that need by being able to, you know, deliver, you know, hopefully quality goods cheaper. So there is that market, but you know what you generally find is, you know, especially with fluctuations, people who were at a 2 or even 3 times return on ad spend beforehand, you know, obviously all metrics staying the same, you know, CTRs, conversion rates, cost per, or what, not cost per, but CTRs, conversion rates, etc., and the CPM all of a sudden quadruples, you know, now you're in a loss. There's not much you can do about that realistically, except for try and improve those conversion rates and those CTRs, because the CPM is, apart from a few things which we won't really go into too much, you know, the CPMs are out of your control essentially.
So methods for that, you know, dig into that brand building, you're going to get that product feedback, you're going to get the groundswell, you're going to get organic, you know, quote unquote organic results for that,
and focus on optimizing your customer experience, you know, shortly pre and post purchase. Is you've got Amazon to compete with, right? And I mean, people you know, shop on Amazon because they've got such a trustworthy and reliable, generally, post user experience. It's so easy to use, and if your user experience isn't up to that, you're going to be losing so much, not just in terms of conversion rates, but also in terms of upsells, in terms of you know, increasing that average order value. So and you lose that brand trust. There's nothing worse than, you know, choosing to go with a product that might be a little bit more expensive, or a little bit cheaper, sorry, than it is on Amazon. Same product, a little bit cheaper, but all of a sudden you don't get your tracking info. All of a sudden you have no idea. You haven't got your confirmation email. You don't know how long it's going to take.
And that should be so simple, easy. But you're saying like there's brands out there that don't have that stuff, and they're missing out on that.
Many.
Wow.
Don't get Neil started on the story of when he bought a robot vacuum and decided to not go to Amazon because somewhere was 20, 30 pounds cheaper, and he was like, this is the worst thing I've ever done, ever. Can't see how long it's going to be. Can't see where it is in the
if you don't, customer convenience is becoming more and more important. People are so used to having that super easy checkout process, having something that's seamlessly able to shop on mobile, something, you know, and being really well looked after.
I hate it when I have to get my wallet out of my pants. It's like, that's the
exactly. So, you know, if you have that optimized as well before you start, you know, chucking a ton of money into front end ads, whether it be Google, whether it be social media, whether it be, you know, any other platform, if you have that optimized, you're going to stand a much better chance of making those ads profitable than you will just kind of getting people to your page and hoping it converts. And we see so many people who kind of have that, especially mobile, as an afterthought, and are wondering why their conversion rates are at 1% or 1.5%, and things aren't working. They, you know,
versus you make some tweaks there, and now your ads are twice as effective if you can.
Exactly. You for the same work, the same energy, the same effort, your ads are now profitable when they were at a loss before.
Love it. And I know we're wrapping up on this. So if you guys have call it 1 or 2 little nuggets you want to give as takeaways, and then we'll follow up with where they can find you and get more info. Like, you got this brand, you got something, you got product market fit, you're trying to scale, you're working your butt off, you got a small team, help me out, Neil and Joe.
I think
give me some nuggets.
I'll go for my one, which isn't necessarily Facebook, Google, everything. So, I've spoken to you more in detail, Adam, a little bit about the sunglasses brand that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'm like, okay, the thing that we've got to do, and what we always talk about at SV is trust and authority is the only reason people buy or do not buy from you. So one of the biggest things that kind of I always look at is how do you massively boost trust and authority with consumer base? There's loads of ways to do them. It's loads of different ways to do it, numerous ones. But for me, when I look at kind of, where we want to go stuff, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want ads to be the holy grail. I don't want that to be everything. And if I turn them off, I have nothing. So the big one is looking at ways of building trust and authority, whether that's getting it in store, just so you can say that you're in store. It's not about getting in store to make a ton of money. It's about getting in store so people build the trust and authority. They're seeing it online, they're seeing it in a store, etc. Nice. So I think for me, one of the big things is it's not necessarily an ad, and people that are looking for an ad hack, I'd always say stop. It's the case of how do I build trust and authority with my consumer base, and then also my brand, because that's the holy grail.
Love it. Trust and authority. Neil, what you got?
I'd say diversifying, not in terms of platform, because especially if you've got a small team, diversifying platform can be, an overwhelming task. But diversify your entry points, right? You've got your own assets that you can build, which is so simple, but a lot of people, especially when they've got an average order value of 100, 150, and direct to sales working so well, kind of before Facebook and in 2020, look at different ways that you can get people onto your email list. The fluctuations are much lower there. It's much more consistent there. You can scale that better there, and you're building long-term value. So you've got your email list, you've got your SMS, you've got your content on the front end, you've got either direct immediate discount email generation, you've got content email generation, you've got these flows that you can build and and do clever things with Klaviyo flows and everything else, like introducing a flash sale on day 7 that's one day only, to kind of move the needle in that customer intent and kind of get someone over the fence. But it's all about, and this really should be a blessing for people looking to grow brands and businesses. It forces you to build a better relationship with your customer, and that is, in my opinion, the most important thing.
Love it. Trust and authority, and diversify. I love it. And Joe, Neil, if people want to get in touch with you, where should they go, and how do they find you?
Just hit our website, sv-marketing.co.uk. That's the easiest way. That's where we hang out the most, and jump on there, contact us on there if anyone's got any questions. And we always have had the same and always continue to have the same in terms of we just try and help as many people as we can. So if anyone ever needs anything, wants to jump on a call, we're always trying to help. We just help people, and then we say that business takes care of itself. So that's our kind of motto.
Love that. You guys are smart. And if anyone's listening to this, if anyone is there, you would pay hundreds of dollars an hour to pick their brains. So hop on that offer, because they know their stuff. That's true. Thanks, you guys.
Cheers, Adam.
Ciao, brother.